Hi, my name is Dr. John Repole, and today we're talking about our 5 pillars to optimal well-being and health that we utilize here at Jacksonville Health and Wellness Center. The first pillar is that we've been gifted this amazing body. We have this one vehicle that we're going to take with us hopefully through the next 60, 70, 80, 100 plus years here on planet Earth. Paradoxically, we have this one body, but we are not, right? Just the body. We are a body, mind, and spirit. We are multidimensional. Disease is multidimensional, and thus there will never be a way to treat the human body with just one simple antidote. We need to look at treatment in a very multi-dimensional way, and that's really where this 5 pillars to optimal well-being has kind of grown out of. The second pillar really comes through traditional Chinese medicine, comes from Ayurvedic medicine, and there's a lot of wisdom with the mystics. And they tell us, right, there's 2 major causes of disease. And those 2 major causes are things of deficiency and those things of excess. So, deficiency, we can look at, obviously vitamin deficiencies, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that to look at deficiencies of love. It goes deficiencies of relationships, our relationship to our family, and even to ourselves. So the deficiency extends past the physical realm. We look at things of excess, and of course this could be gluttony, from the very foods that we're eating. But we can look at excess, from one of the major causes, right, of problems that we deal with on a regular basis is that monkey mind, the mind that just keeps going on and on with negative thoughts that affects our physiology. So we look at, the 2 major causes of dis-ease that contribute to the human body are things of excess and then things of deficiency. Once we do that, the treatment becomes rather simple. What do we need to remove, and what do we need to put back in to nourish the mind, body, and soul? So we move on to the third pillar, and this is a way for us to help identify those things that are of excess and those things that are deficient. So we first, we start with toxins. By looking at, we have man-made toxins like pesticides and herbicides. We have, naturally occurring toxins like mercury and some of the other heavy metals. We have cultural indoctrinated toxins, which is referred to as a meme. These are those stories that are implanted in us by our society, by our family, not necessarily things that we typically believe, but the example that we talk a lot about here in the office is the idea that in India they revere the cow, and in the United States we eat it. These are just culturally indoctrinated units of inheritance, and they can sometimes cause a lot of distress within the body. So we identify all the different things that could potentially be causing toxicity to the body. Then we look at the physical stressors. So physical stressors can be the obvious, like trauma, but it can also be issues with our own genetic blueprint of DNA, copying errors. It could also be structural related problems of the musculoskeletal system, the organs, the nerves, the tissues and the cells that make up our very body. And so we want to look at the physical stressors and identify which ones that we may need to be focusing in on or working on. And then the third portion is really looking at what we're going to call the mind, the body, the egoic stressors. Our ego is really the part of us that is attached to the temporal time, to the environment, things outside of us, and to our physical body. And not realizing that, we are love, we are happiness, and that resides within us, and we're always looking to the external. The other part here that causes a lot of problems on a physiological basis too is the idea of competition. It's the idea that we are not interconnected, right? And it's holding on to these thoughts that we live in a dog-eat-dog world, and that there's competition and there is lack of interconnectedness and separation and isolation, and these affect our body physiologically. So we can look at just a typical thought, and we can see that it can affect our autonomic nervous system, or part of our autonomic nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system, which increases sympathetic tone. So it will increase our blood pressure and our pulse and our respiration rate and so forth. So just the mere thinking or negative thoughts can affect our body physiologically. So we need to pay it the attention that it deserves. Once we identify the stressors, right, we look to see how the body is obviously reacting, and that we call stress. So the body can react by increasing blood pressure, by vomiting, or increasing our temperature to ward our body off of the bacteria or virus that's invaded our body. And we need to understand the difference between the stress response, which is really a warning sign by the body to tell us that something is wrong, and these other stressors that are affecting the equilibrium and the body to kind of go into a state of dis-ease. So once we have that understanding, then we move on to the antidote. And the antidote lies within our 4 steps to wellness. The first step is about detoxification. We're going to detox, all the organs of elimination internally, the liver, the kidney, the skin, the lungs. We're going to extend it to the mind to try and get rid of those repetitive thoughts or those cultural indoctrinated memes that have been implanted within our body, and allowing us to kind of think along the lines of new paradigms. We're going to look at external detoxification. This could be looking at, the things that are bombarding us from the outside world in. This may need us to identify the people that we hang out with, the environment that we live in, the work environment, our home environment, and so forth. And we may need to kind of take out, quote unquote, the clutter that is affecting us on a negative way. So we move on from detoxification then to the 100% diet. And that's really a foundational approach. And the way we teach it here is that we want patients to eat 100% of their foods from 100% natural sources. So the obvious problem is identification of what natural is. But we're not going to get into detail on that, but we're going to keep it kind of, from rules of reasonableness and common sense. There's 3 ways that we can obtain nutrients. And we're talking about nutrition here for a moment. We can obtain them from primary sources, plants, because all nutrients that are essential to the human body come from plants. We can obtain them secondarily from secondary sources. This would be, say, the cow coming and eating the grass and then obtaining the calcium from the grass and taking it into their muscular tissue. And then we have a tertiary source of nutrients, and this would be, since the Industrial Revolution, the bagels and cookies and crackers, all the convenient foods that we find in the grocery store. We see a direct linear relationship by the amount of primary source nutrients we put in our body, increasing longevity, meaning number of years here on this planet, and increasing in aging, or our quality of life while we're here on this planet. And we see the opposite. The more secondary and tertiary nutrients that we add into our diet, the more ill health, and particularly what we call degenerative diseases, which are diseases that are primarily affected by, from diet and lifestyle. This is cancer and diabetes and heart disease and so forth. So we extend also in this category here nutrients to anything that nourishes the mind, body, and soul. So we're talking about air, we're talking about water, we're talking about love. And we're going above and beyond just the carbs, the fats, and proteins that we usually identify in the old paradigm. As we keep going, the next step is really about the Tao of movement and rest, restorative sleep and growth. And understanding this Goldilocks rule here, we need a certain amount of movement, we need through exercise, but we also need a certain amount of rest and restorative sleep. The last portion deals a lot with our relationships, and this is our relationship, number 1, to ourself. Then we extend it to the relationship with our immediate family, and we then extend it towards our culture, to humanity, to our cosmos, and then to whatever we identify as our creator, God, consciousness. And it's about understanding how those relationships affect the physical body. And our last pillar to health is about becoming a superconductor of consciousness, to become all that we are capable of becoming. And if you go to our website, you'll find a drop-down box there, and it will say following your bliss. And this goes a little bit more into detail about this particular pillar. So we got 1 body, 2 causes of disease, excess, and deficiency, 3 ways to identify them, 4 things that we can do for the antidote, and then on the 5th one, what we can do to become superconductors of consciousness. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.